For this lab, we're going to do the base. So open up the PDF file for the base, and we're going to do this as a metric part file. So start from the metric template, and then we see that the overall width of this is 400 wide and it is 360 tall, and I'm going to do that from the top view. So I'll go to the top view on the view cube. I'll start a new sketch on the XZ plane, and I'm going to draw a rectangle, and I'm going to put it in space with the origin at this location right here. In fact, let's go ahead and dimension the distance. Let's see where that origin is. So from this edge over to the origin is 130. So let's dimension the distance from this edge over to the origin. We'll do that as 130. And then I'll dimension the overall width of this from here to here as 400. And I'll dimension the height of this rectangle as 360. Now it might be a good idea to turn on the visibility of the origin so that we keep track of where it's at. So I'm going to turn on the visibility of origin, and I want it closer to the middle here. So I'm going to drag this rectangle up. So yours might be down here, it could be anywhere. I'll drag the rectangle up so it's about like that, and then I'm going to draw a line from this point over to the midpoint and make sure that it snaps green to the midpoint of this vertical line. And then I'm going to make this line horizontal. So when I make this horizontal, watch, this line and this line will change color. Everything is now fully defined. I want this to be a construction line though, so I'll right click and I'll change that to construction. So we have a rectangle 360 by 400. It's 130 away from this edge, the origin. And then I'm going to draw this slot shape right here. So underneath rectangle, I'll do a center to center slot. So I need to find it here, center to center slot. And I'm going to click someplace on this line, but not here at the midpoint. Don't click there at the midpoint. I'm going to click about right here, and then I'm going to click over here on the end, and I'll come up about like that and click there. The width of that slot is 40, so I'll dimension the width of this slot from here to here as 40. And then I'm going to dimension the distance from the origin over to the center of this end of the slot is 70. So I'll dimension from the origin over to the center of this end of the slot, and that distance is 70. Everything turns dark. It's all fully constrained. I'm then going to put a chamfer, and I'm trying to decide whether I want to do the chamfer now or if I want to do the chamfer after I extrude this. I think we'll go ahead and do this now. So I'm going to do a chamfer, and so I need to find that. Underneath fillet, I'll select chamfer, and for the chamfer distance I'll put in 15. It'll default to a 45-degree angle, and I'll select these two edges. I'll select these two edges, and I'll say OK to that. So it put that chamfer in there incorrectly, so I'm going to undo that. So rather than put it in as a sketch feature, I'll do it as a placed feature. So if I look at this, the distance from here up to here is 30. So I'm going to extrude that 30, and I have a 93-degree angle here, so I'm going to extrude that with a taper angle. So I'm going to go to my 3D model tab, I'll do extrude, and I'm going to go up a distance of 30. And then for the taper angle, I'm going to put in 3 degrees. Now actually I intended that actually to be 7 degrees, so let's instead of doing 3 degrees, let's do a 7-degree taper angle. Now I want to make sure that it's getting smaller as it goes up. And so I see that it's actually getting bigger. If I click on the flip direction and watch the geometry when I flip that direction, so now it's getting smaller. So that's getting bigger, that's getting smaller. I want it to get smaller as it's going up. So I'll go ahead and say OK to that. Did something right. I'll save it and call this table, or base. Call it base. Okay, now I'll do the chamfer in this corner, and this corner is 15, and I'll also do a chamfer on this corner and the corner over here. I'll do those as 40. So on the 3D model tab, I'll do chamfer, and I'll select this corner and this corner, and I'll type in 15, and I'll say apply to that. And then I'm going to select this corner, and I'm going to do those as 45. And I'll say OK to create those two chamfers. Then I want to put a fillet in this corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner, radius 30. So I'll select fillet. I'll select this corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner. Change that radius to 30. Did something right. I'll save it. Now I want to do a chamfer that goes all the way around the top of this, and the radius, or the chamfer size, is 15. So we'll do chamfer. I'll select this edge. Now this is a little tricky on this one, so I'll select this edge, and let's change that distance to 15. I need to go back, and then I'll select this edge, and it goes all the way around, and I'll select, now don't forget this edge. You got to get this short little edge right here, and this edge right here, and so now that chamfer is going all the way around. So the most common mistake is not selecting this little edge right here and this little edge right here. Distance is 15. I'll say OK to that. So make sure yours looks like mine. Hey, if yours doesn't look like mine, send me an email. We need to get this straightened out. Alright, did something right, save it. Okay, now I'm going to shell this thing to a thickness of 10 millimeters. Now actually I'm going to make a mistake, but I want to show you how to recover from that mistake. So we'll go ahead and do shell. So we haven't done shell before, so I'm going to do shell. And I'm going to set the shell thickness as this 10 millimeters. And I'll say OK to this. And actually I made a mistake on that, and so I'm going to undo that shell. And let's do it again. I need to select this face. I want to remove that bottom face, so I turn it over, select the bottom face, set it on 10, and I'll say OK to that. And so now we can see that the part is uniform thickness all the way around 10 millimeters. Next I want to do this circular feature right here, and the distance from here to here was 30. That was our first extrusion, and then it's another 8 millimeters up to the top of this cylindrical feature. I'm going to right click on this face, and I'll tell it to do a new sketch, and then I'm going to draw a circle from the projected origin, and I want it to be over to the end of this. Now your computer might automatically snap there. I have mine set so that it doesn't automatically snap, so I'll just hit escape and click anywhere, and then I'll do coincident this circle to this point. Now I see that it's not snapping to that point, or maybe it will. Yeah, so it did snap to that point. Notice the circle turned dark. It's all fully constrained. I don't want to extrude this area inside the circle, so I'm going to do project geometry, and I'm going to select this edge, and this edge. And so now I have a closed in boundary inside that area right there. I'll finish sketch and I'll do extrude, and I'm going to select this area. I'm going to go up a distance of 8 millimeters. Now it's hard to tell, but I have a fillet going around this edge. I don't know if I have a good view of that anywhere. That fillet is radius 8, so I'll do fillet and select the top edge, not this edge down here. Select this top edge and put in radius 8. Okay, and then I'm going to do this rectangular feature down here at the other end. So I'm going to click on this face. I'll do a new sketch, and I will draw a rectangle. And then you may need to hit F7. If you can't see this dot, hit F7 on your keyboard, and then it'll look like this. And draw a line from the projected origin to the midpoint. Make sure it snaps green to the midpoint. And then I want to make this line horizontal, so I'll do horizontal and click on this line. I'll change this to construction, although I don't really need to, so I'm going to change that though to construction. And the distance from here to here is 60, so I'll dimension the distance from here to here as 60. And the distance from here to here is 180, so I'll dimension that as 180. And then the distance from the origin over to the center of this hole is 180, but then I need to come back the radius of this arc, and I don't see where I've given the radius of that arc. I might have forgotten that someplace. I see that it's 40 from here to here, and it's 60 from here to here, so that leaves 20 left over, so that means that arc is radius 10. So I'm going to subtract, or actually add, now to this edge, so from here over is 10, so I need to subtract 10 from that, so that'll be 170. So I'll dimension from the origin to this line as 170. Notice everything turns black. It's all fully constrained. I'm going to then extrude that 8 millimeters. So I'll finish sketch, and I'll do extrude, and I'll put in the 8 millimeters. I'll say OK to that. Then I have a fillet in these 4 corners, and that fillet we determined was radius 10. So I'll do fillet. I will select this edge, this edge, this edge, and that edge. Notice we can get the edge right through the part. We don't have to rotate around. So I'll get that edge and change that radius to 10. Okay, so now those corners are filleted. Now there's a fillet here, radius 8, going all the way around. So these 4 fillets were radius 10, and then I'll do a fillet radius 8 around this bottom edge. I'll say OK to that. Did something right, save it. Alright, now I decided that I need to make some changes to this model, and I need to go back to an earlier time in history to make those changes. Well, let's continue on, and then we'll see how to make those changes. So I'm going to do a new sketch on this face, and actually instead of this face, yes, let's select that face. So I'll right click, do a new sketch on this face, and I'm going to draw a rectangle from here over about like that, and I'm drawing this rectangle for these 4 holes right there. And so the distance between centers this way is 260, so I'll dimension this as 260, and the distance between holes this way is 280, and the distance from this hole to the center of the origin is 70, so I'll dimension from here to here as 70. Now yours rectangle may have moved up or down, like that. What I want is I want the midpoint of this line horizontal over to there. So the easy way to do that is I'll draw a line from the midpoint, make sure it snaps green to the midpoint of this line, wherever it is. There's the midpoint over to here. And then I'll make that horizontal. So I'll do horizontal, select that line, not the point. Don't select the point, select the line. And now that all turns dark. I'm going to put a crossing or a window around all of that. Right click, change all of that to construction. And then I'm trying to decide whether I want to do this with the whole command or if I want to do that with just putting a circle in here. We'll do these with the circle. We'll do this one and these four with the whole command. So I'm going to draw a circle here, diameter 18. Okay, so we see that diameter 18 right here, and then I'll draw a circle here, and I'll draw a circle down here, and I'll draw a circle here. If I change this one, I want these other three to change as well, so I'm going to do equal. I'll make this circle equal to that one. I'll make this circle equal to the original, and I'll make this circle equal to the original. Okay, so I have those four circles. I'm going to do an extrude cut through all. So I'll finish sketch, and I'm going to do extrude, and I'm going to select this circle, this circle, this circle, and this circle. I will put it on cut, and for the distance I'll tell it to go through all. And I'll say OK to that. Now if I look at this from the bottom side, actually I wanted a mounting boss coming out 10mm thick from that circle. So we can change the history of when something occurred. Let's drag this hole, and actually it's not letting me drag it up before the shell, which I wanted to do, and that's probably because of the sketch. So I decided that I want these holes to occur before the shell, and normally I can drag the feature up, but we see that it's not permitting me to drag it up before the shell. So we need to redefine the sketch so that it occurs before the shell. And I did this sketch on this top face, and really what I need to do is put it on the XZ plane. So if I've expanded the extrusion, I'm going to right click and I'll select redefine, and I want to redefine that sketch to the XZ plane. And when I do, I'm going to get an error. Go ahead and accept that error. Okay, so the holes disappear. Notice I have an eye in a circle indicating that there is a problem, and the problem is that we move the sketch actually down to the bottom, so the direction for the holes has to be flipped. So I'm going to right click and edit that feature, and then I'm going to click here to flip this direction, and now we see that it's previewing those holes going up from the bottom, going up, and I'll say OK to that. The eye in the circle goes away, so that error goes away. And let's turn this part over so we can see from the bottom, and then drag the extrusion, the whole extrusion, up before the shell feature. So I'm going to drag this up, I'll drag it up, and I'll drop it right there. And so notice it puts a 10mm boundary around that hole. So that's what I really intended. And so we can change the order. If we make a mistake, we can change the order in which we do something in order to take care of that issue. Alright, from the bottom side of this, I have a counterbore hole going through the bottom, and actually I need that counterbore hole to occur before the shell feature as well. So let's drag the end of part marker up to it's just above the shell feature, and then I'm going to select on the whole command, I'll select this point, and I'll select this face, and I didn't get that hole command. Let's try that again. I'll select the hole command, there we go, and I'll select this point, and I'll select this face. I want it perpendicular to this face. I'm going to select a counterbore hole for the, I'm trying to put this where we can preview it as we're going along. The diameter of the counterbore is 40, so right here we see 40, so let's change this to 40. The diameter of the hole is 12, so let's change this to 12. And the depth of the counterbore is 10, so let's change this distance to 10. And we see the preview here. We'll go ahead and select OK to that, and so now we see that that hole is going through the part, but notice we don't have that cylinder here, so let's drag the end of part marker back down so we see the hole occur before this part, so it's not going all the way through before that feature, but it did put that 10mm wall thickness around there. So we need to cut out this area right in here, and there are several different ways we could do that. Let's just I'm trying to decide how I want to cut that hole going through there. Let's do another hole feature, and this time I'm going to put it on a simple hole, and I will select this point as the location. I want it perpendicular to this face, so I'll select that face, and I want this one to be a simple hole, and somehow I got on countersink, so I'll come over here, I'll tell it none, and I want this one to go through all, so I'll select through all. The diameter is 12mm. I'll say OK to that. So now that hole goes all the way through the top of the part. Did something right. I'll save it. Alright, next I want to put these 4 holes up here on this face. So I'm going to select that face and do a new sketch. I will draw a rectangle about like this. Now be careful, your cursor might accidentally snap to the center of these arcs. I don't want to snap to the center of those arcs, although if it does, that's okay, because that's actually where it's at. The distance from here to here is 160, so I'll dimension the distance from there to there is 160. The distance from here to here is 40, so I'll dimension this distance as 40. And then the distance from this corner to the origin is 180, so from here to here is 180. And then I want it centered up this way, and so I'll draw a line from the origin to the midpoint. Make sure you get to the midpoint of this line, and then I'll make this line horizontal, so once it's horizontal, that centers it up. Okay. Alright, then I'm going to put a point, a sketch point, at this location, this location, this location, and this location. I'll hit escape. So what I did is I just put these 4 points at these locations where I want the hole. I'll finish sketch, and I'll do hole, and I want this to be a tapped hole. For the thread, I want it to be an M8, so we'll select metric threads. So I'll do ANSI metric threads, and I'll select the M8, so I'll select 8. And I want the pitch to be 1.25. I want it to go through all, so I have it set to go through all. And I want the hole and the thread to go through all. And so here where it says full depth, check mark that so that the thread goes through as well as the hole. And so I'll look at that so that the cosmetic thread goes all the way through. And So then we could apply a color to our part. So you can click on this down arrow, or you could click on the beach ball and select whatever color you want for your part. But I may not have any paint on this face and this face, so I'm going to right click and go to properties of that, and I'll change that to say aluminum, a polished aluminum, or set it to be a chrome colored, so they took the paint off of there. Let me show you an easier way to do the rest of these. So I'm going to click on this beach ball, I get this eyedropper, I'll pick up this color with the eyedropper, and then holding the control key down, I'll select this phase and I'll select this hole. You might have trouble getting it, it's slow to select that, and I think I got it. Actually, let me just go ahead and accept that. I'll do these one at a time. And actually you can drop that over here, so I'll do that again. So I'll pick up this color with the eyedropper, and with the paint bucket then I'll just come over here and click on these holes, hold down the control key, and I can drop the chrome, or actually taking the paint off of that, and I have an extrusion up, or a hole up here. And I'll get that one, and I'll also get this extrusion that we did for those holes. Okay, I'll say okay to that. So I took the paint off of the holes, and I missed this hole right here, and also I'll take the paint off the bottom. So I'll get the eyedropper, I will pick up this unpainted color, then with the paint bucket I can select this phase, I'll hold down the control key, I'll select that phase, I will select this phase, and I'm having trouble getting that one. There, I got it. And you don't have to do these all at once, so if you're having trouble, just say okay. And I actually want to find that that one hole. I missed that hole, so let's do this again. So I'll do adjust, I'll pick up the color, I'm going to drop that onto the hole that occurred before the shell feature. There's the shell. Okay, so that got that hole. I'll also hold down the control key down, I'll select this phase, and I'll take the paint off of, got one more phase. Whoops, I zoomed out too far. Let me go ahead and accept that before I mess up, and then I'll zoom back in. Okay, so I have one more. So I'll click on adjust, this beach ball. I'll pick up that color, I'll drop that color onto this face, I'll say okay to that. Alright, so I have painted my part, taken the paint off of some of the features. I have one more step I want to do, or actually two steps that might be a little bit complex. Remember that we put a draft angle on these faces down here when we did our first extrusion. I want to continue that draft angle up here on these three faces. Now notice right now, so there's an angle here, and then it goes up vertically here, an angle and vertical and so forth. So notice that boundary in between there. So I'm going to select face draft, and so I need to find the tool. So I'll select draft, and it asks me to select a pull direction first. I want to put the angle relative to this face right here, so I'm going to select this face as my pull direction, and then it asks me for the faces I want to put a draft on. I'm going to select this face, and it notice with the somewhere there's an automatic face chain, it's going all the way around, so I need to make one pick. Now be sure you pick it down here. This line right here would be referred to as a hinge. Make sure you pick it close to the hinge. Don't pick it up here close to the top. So I'm going to click about right here, and then we can drag this to see how it gets bigger, or the slot gets bigger as that rotates around that hinge. We want to do that as at 7 degrees, so I'll put in the 7 degrees that we used earlier. I'll say okay to that. Now notice those lines disappear in between there because that's a continuous 7 degrees. I'm going to do the same thing on these bosses down here on the bottom. So this 7-degree draft angle helps the part come out of the mold. And so again, I'm going to do draft, and this time I'm going to select the top of one of these bosses as to set my pull direction, and then I'm going to draft the faces. I'm going to select towards the top of this face up here, not down here. I'll select this face up there. We see that that's getting bigger. I will select this face towards the top. We see that it's getting bigger, and by the 7 degrees I'll select this face towards the top. We see it getting bigger. I'll select this face, and I think I missed that one. I'm going to control unselect that and do it again. So I'll control unselect it. Okay, so well, there, now it's working. Alright, then I'm going to select this face, and we'll say OK to that. Okay, so those are now getting bigger. They're now shaped like a cone as they go down. So that completes this part.